Confirming. This lecture is about the prominent buildings of India. We have studied about the prominent buildings of world. Also, we have studied about the history of both the world and the Indian history. So a lot of buildings that you have studied in the history part, try to remember those also, because they are important for this topic also. I'll just show you one or two buildings which you have already studied about, but will not cover all the buildings that you have studied in the history part. Now, if you guys remember the first lecture that we had about the prominent buildings of the world, so things that you need to remember are same that we studied in that class. So let me just again revise that for you. We can simply say points to remember. Now, what all examples I'll show you in the subsequent slides. In all of them, you need to remember the name of the building. Now, it could be a building, it could be any structure, it could be a part of structure that is famous, or it could be the minarets that are, exclusive structures on their own. They have their own identity. Those could be asked. So we can write it as the name of the building or structure. Any kind of structure could be there. Then one thing that I always stresses about is form of the building. Form of the building / structure. This form means you should be able to visualize how the building looks like. It's like the profile of the building. Is the profile something like this? Or the building is something like this? Whatever is the profile, the form of the building, you should be able to remember that. So give emphasis on this form part while we go through all the buildings. One of the reason I'm stressing about this again, I always tell you guys to keep this thing in mind, is because in recent paper of NATA of this year, one of the question that they have given is they draw the skyline of different cities in 4 examples. So they drew some of the key buildings that are there in the skyline. That means if you know the form of the building, if you know the profile of the building, only then you would be able to identify the building or the city. I'll show you this question also that was asked. So remember, try to keep the form in mind. Next, you need to remember the architect. Sometimes what NATA or JEE do, they simply give you the name of the building or the image of the building, and they will ask you who is the architect of this building. Or sometimes one part that is kind of bit hard, and they do not rarely ask questions from that side, is that they give the name of the architect and then they give 4 examples of the buildings and they ask which building is designed by this architect. So this way, whenever you look at the name of the building, try to remember the name of architect with it as well. These are the 3 things that are most important that you need to keep in mind while we go through this class, this lecture. The last thing that you should have an idea of is location. Location of the building or structures. They can ask you where this building is located. Where is the building that was designed by this architect is located in which city? Such kind of questions could be asked. So these are the points that you need to keep in mind. You can take the notes during this lecture. So you can simply start writing them, like point 1, you write down the name of the building. Then when I show you the image, you can note down the key features that you actually notices from that image. After that, you can note down the name of architect and the location. These are the features which can help you in remembering the building. And this is the name. Are we clear till now?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Now also sometimes, remember I just told you one of the example on how NATA or JEE ask you questions about is that they ask question based on the form of the building, in which they have given the skyline of different cities and they asked you to identify the name of the city. That is only possible if you can identify the buildings that are there in that particular city. That's why, you know, studying all these prominent buildings is important. Another thing is that they do not always directly ask questions like simply giving the image and then asking. Sometimes they twist them a little bit. They can move slightly away from that. It's like they can give you about, you can say, a hint of the plan, or they can give you about any prominent features, or if a building is famous about something, and then they can ask about that building. So those kind of things could be asked in exam also. So as you go through this lecture, keep all these points in mind that we have discussed, and then try to remember the buildings. So the first one, if I simply ask you, any one of you familiar with this building? This one is in the capital complex, Chandigarh, designed by architect Le Corbusier. So this person, Le Corbusier, he not only designed the entire city of Chandigarh, but he also designed the prominent buildings, prominent government buildings and offices that are there in Chandigarh. So if you get any building that is in Chandigarh, which is this kind of texture, you can see like the exposed concrete, the RCC kind of thing. Remember, while studying the prominent buildings of world, we try to look at the different architectural styles or the forms of buildings, and we try to link them with the architects so that we can identify the architect and the building. Do you guys remember that part? Because that actually helps us in making these things easy to recall. So Le Corbusier, he is the person who not designed but planned the city of Chandigarh. And he also designed a lot of government offices and buildings. Another thing is the open hand in Chandigarh by Le Corbusier. So this is a structure. Again, this is a part of the capital complex. Means on this side, you can see the upper building, this one. And then you can see this one. So this is the open hand, like the thumb and the fingers. So in NATA, they can simply give you this image and they can even ask the name of it, the open hand. The key features that we have written here, you need not to remember them. You can simply go through them and you can have a fair idea about them. And again, the finish of it you see is that of concrete, this grayish finish. Then this is a building that most of you might know. This is a religious building, the Golden Temple in Amritsar. So in this building, the finish is already you are familiar with, along with the name, the Golden Temple. So those things you need not to remember. Remember, this building is in Amritsar. Then we have this building, which is actually very famous building and designed by another famous architect who is Moshe Safdie. This building is Virasat-e Khalsa. Now, I have used two images here because I want you to focus upon the form of the built structure and also the entire site. Because even NATA can give you this question in plan form, so you should be able to see these kind of patterns, right? These kind of forms, keep in your mind. Also, if you look at this image, see that this is the build form, then connected by a bridge, and then having some kind of more build form and having a water body in between, this kind of profile. So this is the form that I was talking about, that you should keep these things in mind while going through any of the building. For this building, you need to remember the name as well as the name of architect. Clear? In all the buildings, all the examples that we will see, always try to look at the distinct features of each building. In other buildings, you won't see such kind of form on the roof going like this. So this way, these things help you in identifying the buildings. Then we have the Siddhi Bashir Masjid, or the shaking minarets. Now the shaking minarets, this is, you can say, the uniqueness of this building. And because of such kind of uniqueness, such kind of buildings are kind of favorite for our conducting authorities. These are the two minarets. There are only two minarets, and these are called the shaking minarets, Jhulta Minar in Hindi. So NATA have even asked questions on this, but the question was, in which city the shaking minarets are located? That means you need to remember the location as well, that it is in Ahmedabad. In these minarets, there is some unsolved secret of vibrations. So because of that, this is famous. So you can just remember that there are these two minarets into the facade. Remember in this front elevation that you are seeing. So this is the name, Siddhi Bashir Masjid, and the shaking minarets is its other name. Location is Ahmedabad. All these details you need to keep in mind because anything could be asked. Like for this, they have asked the location. On the similar manner, for this building, NATA might consider that, okay, you must be familiar with the name or the architect. They can ask you about the location of it. Anandpur Sahib. Clear? I'll show you a lot of questions towards the end of the class. We'll solve all of them. So from those questions, you will get a fair idea of what kind of questions you can expect from this topic. Are we clear till now? Quickly confirm.
Yes, sir.
Okay, others? Thank you, Drishil.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Then we have this Bada Imam Bara. Now this Bada Imam Bara of Mughal architecture is in Lucknow. This is the structure. Just a minute. And the image that you are seeing on the right, this is the image of this Bhul Bhulaiya. This structure is having a kind of Bhul Bhulaiya on its upper floor. So you can go on this side, you can go on this side, then again you are having more openings, you are